Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the post segment Casing Point from the platform of Habitat Studio. Still yours, I remain, Oluwafunsho or Lodger. The topic for today is the caregivers' rigor and reward. Someone I know recently fell ill suddenly because she didn't feel it coming. She was admitted, and it took her almost a week to see a medical doctor at the General Hospital in Lagos. I find it to be worrisome that someone in a critical state like hers couldn't get access to a medical doctor even in emergency situation until after a few days. Similar thing happened when she was moved to the ward. So today we would be discussing with a nurse from the private hospital who would be helping us to make sense of the course of things like this. Why competent hands are gradually depleting and all to others that can aid to achieve a considerable and workable solution. We have with us a registered nurse plus an ophthalmic nurse. Her name is Amechi Chidera Adalgo. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Fonsho, and I feel very privileged to be doing this.
First of all, tell us how long it took you to become a certified nurse and what distinguishes you from the auxiliary nurses.
Okay, so I actually have two qualifications. One being the general nurse, and then, like you introduced me earlier, rightly, being an ophthalmic nurse. Yes, so it took me 3 years to get my general nursing, and then I went for that to do an extra year to specialize in ophthalmic nursing. And it's actually funny for sure you're asking me that question. Okay, so what differentiates me between from an auxiliary nurse is hmm, everything, everything, everything for sure. I say everything because if you go to nursing school for 3 years, you understand what I mean by everything. So auxiliary nurses just walk into a hospital and they're registered and they're trained by doctors or nurses, as the case may be. And, at the end of their training, I don't know how long they do it. I think it varies. But at the end of their training, they are given a certificate. So they are trained based on practicals, they see, they watch, and once they say repetition makes something stick, so once they keep watching severally over and over again, you just tend to learn. But being a general nurse and a qualified one, registered nurse, you would have to know the reason and the rationale behind what you're actually practicing. So some of them, when you ask them a rationale behind whatever it is they are doing, they don't know. The registered nurse is going to give you a reason why he or she is doing what he or she is doing. And behaviorally, there are differences because we're taught to be cautious, courtesy, respect, and all that ethics. But auxiliary nurses, I'm sorry to say, do not have ethics, because they have nothing to lose. But a registered nurse has his or her license and livelihood to lose. So yeah, that's practically the difference.
How long have you been practicing and what led you to make that decision of becoming a nurse?
Okay, so for nurses or for healthcare professionals in general, your experience start once you start school, because you go for postings, you go for clinicals and all that. So basically, I've been practicing for about, I got into school 2013, and this is 2021. So practicing basically for about 8 years. Yeah, for about 8 years. And it's actually not been easy. Nursing is a calling. It's more than a vocation. It's more than a profession. It's a calling. It's a calling because you have to deal with a lot of things, a lot of emotions, a lot of behavior, and because you are dealing with human beings, you have to actually be patient. So I think I think I knew I was going to be in the healthcare setting a long time ago, but I didn't really know which one it was. So as time went on, one thing led to the other, and I found myself in nursing school. And at that point, it wasn't really palatable. Yeah, palatable. But as time went on, I began to enjoy it. I began to, see reasons why I actually, I actually found my way. I'll just say it was just destiny. It was just destiny, and I'm actually enjoying it.
From what I shared earlier, is a situation similar to yours since you work in a private hospital?
Not at all. Not at all. The situation in a private setting is different. It's different from what you get in the general hospital because, private hospitals are more or less run like a business. So if you don't run your business well, you get competitions, and before you know it, your business folds. So in the private settings, everyone is on their toes. Everybody is working to keep themselves in business. So there will not be a situation where you come into a private hospital with an emergency and you're not attended to. No, I don't think I've ever seen that happen. Like, it's sparingly. Like, unlike the general hospitals or government hospitals where anything goes because it doesn't really belong to anyone, it belongs to the government. So the government property is nobody's property and could be actually run anyhow. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's the same. It's not the same. I think it's quite the opposite, if I can say that.
Ideally, based on the code of ethics and duties, how many patients are to be tended to, respectively, in the hospital by a doctor and a nurse?
Okay, so ideally, the nurse-patient ratio is 1:3 in teaching hospitals and 1:5 in private hospitals. Yeah, so 1:3 in teaching hospitals, maximum of 3 teaching hospitals, and 1:5, so maximum of 5 in government hospitals. Yeah, 1:3 and 1:5. That's the ideal. But who says ideal these days? Nobody says ideal these days because we can find a situation in the private setting where one nurse is in charge of the whole floor, and the whole floor could take like 8-10 patients, if not more. And then when you get to the general hospitals, or miss me with that, you can come into a ward, if it's a surgical or a medical ward, and you have 27 patients and they're just 2 nurses on duty. You see, so but the ideal thing is 1:3 in general hospitals, and in private settings 1:5.
What can you say is the cause of this shortfall? Does it have anything to do with salary, workload, or what exactly can you say it is?
It has everything to do with workload and much more to do with salary, because over here, this part of the world, healthcare professionals are not valued. That's why everybody wants to get out. Everybody wants to, let me borrow the word, everybody wants to jackpot. Everybody wants to go where they are valued. Everybody wants to go where they are, where they're respected. Everybody wants to go where they are looked out for. It's not like it's fantastic outside here, but at least there is value for everything you do. There's value for everything you do. The remuneration is so poor, like it's so poor, where you see doctors, nurses receiving 5,000 naira as a hazard allowance. What's that? This is a profession where we expose ourselves every single day to a lot of risks. 5,000 naira. And those of us that work in a private setting don't even get anything at all. Nothing at all. So the remuneration has everything to do with it. And the workload, or like I said earlier, the work ratio is 1:3, 1:5. But you can see in a situation where one nurse is managing 15 patients, 20, 30, come on, so much. And then we're getting peanuts as a remuneration. And then you're not valued. And then the workload is so much. That's why everybody wants to get out. That's why everybody, wants to go. So I remember I was discussing with a friend of mine who is opportune to get married to a nurse abroad. So we were discussing, and I said, do you know that there was a point in my career I was earning less than 3,000, less than $6, or less than $10 an hour? And the response was, are you working under gunpoint? Yeah, it's that bad. So I think remuneration, workload, lack of value, lack of respect has everything to do with it.
Considering the fact that you have worked more at the private hospital, what significant difference in terms of service delivery, taking to note equipment, infrastructure, environment, and most competent hands, would you say they both have as an advantage on either side? What can you say they have as an advantage on either side?
Okay, so working more in the private setting and seeing a little of the other setting, well, I'd say it depends and it varies. Yeah, but on the private setting, of course, like I said, people run private settings mostly like businesses, and of course, you want your business to stand out. So the environment has to be superb. People have to love where they're coming, and then of course you'd have to have good customer care, good customer relation, so that someone who comes today will be able to come tomorrow. And then you have equipment too, because of course you want to outdo every other person to keep your business on the line, So equipment, and then Some try to employ good hands, a few that are able to pay adequately employ good hands, you know. But on the general side, I would say there's more qualified hands. Yeah, we have to give that a general setting. There's more qualified hands because, of course, recruitment exercises are not just done out of the blue. They don't just give anybody a job. They have to scrutinize the person, go through a lot of entrances and exams and scrutiny before you get employed. So I think they have a lot of qualified hands in the government setting or the general setting. There are a lot of qualified hands that I can give them. The environment might not be so fantastic because of lack of maintenance and equipment. I don't know, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 4. Because you've seen situations where there is only one radiology machine or one CT scan or one MRI in the whole of the southeast. So if there's any scan or anything you want, any test you want to do pertaining to that, they'll give you a referral letter and you go there. And before equipment are purchased in the government setting, they have to write letters and has to go through tables, approvals upon approvals, unlike the private setting where if you feel you have a need for a machine or people that is in high demand, you can just get it.
Would you say that nurses are adequately appreciated through rewards by private hospitals and public hospitals?
No, I'll say no. Nurses are not adequately appreciated anywhere in this part of the world. Nurses are not adequately. Why do you think practically every nurse you meet wants to write IELTS and get out? Because they're not seeing it. They're not seeing. Nurses are putting in work. It's a hands-on job. It's a 24/7, 365-day job. Even when you're not in the hospital setting, emotionally you are there. You're thinking of these patients. You're doing this. You're doing that. If you're not there bodily, you're making phone calls. You're trying to see that things are working well. Nurses put in a lot of work, a whole lot of work. We're beside the patient day in, day out. Every second, every minute, there is a nurse in charge of a patient. You cannot go to a hospital and not see a nurse there. So, and we are not properly remunerated. We are not properly appreciated. We're not properly anything. Nothing at all. Nothing. And it's sad because one will think that with all the work we put in, we should be appreciated, we should be valued, we should be respected, but none of that. You don't see any of that happening, and that's a sad thing, really.
How do you think that the current situation can be overturned to encourage people to go into nursing here in Nigeria? Because it appears many would rather go to the developed countries and do it there willingly than consider it here.
So someone once said that Nigeria is training nurses for the world, and I studied it, and critically I feel it's the truth, because every day almost every nursing institution in Nigeria is full to the brim. So every nurse that you see every nurse that you see, every new generation nurse, even the ones before us, you see, wants to study nursing so that the person can go abroad. So it's not like people are not studying nursing, people are studying nursing, but the environment is not conducive for them to stay and actually practice here in Nigeria. A lot of people are going into nursing because of a long time goal. They want to go to Canada, UK, Australia, you know, rather than be here. And I think it's going to help a lot you know, if we if we begin to get value for our job, if we begin to get value for the care that we give to people. A lot of policies have to be rewritten, a lot of things. We have to go back to the drawing board and, redo a lot of things so that we could make the environment conducive for a nurse who has studied here to remain here and work and make a livelihood out of their jobs and not live from hand to mouth. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this information with us. We hope that those in charge would listen to it and do it right to avert the continued and more terrible aftermath of the state of things in our health sector. People, thank you for being a part of this post segment. Keep following and engaging with our post on Habitat Studio. I, Oluwafunsho Lodger, says, cheers.